Chapter 3. A Place for Strangers. Harry's farm was nestled against the curve of a shallow canyon, a place where the wind howled just a little less and the sun dipped early behind the rock. It wasn't scenic by most standards, but it was Harry's version of peace. A week had passed since his last visit to Rustbridge. He'd spent most of it waist-deep in hydroponic recalibrations, arguing with drone AIs and repairing a faulty atmospheric vent. It was a good kind of busy, the kind that asked for sweat and not too many thoughts. But even as he worked, he found his thoughts drifting to Kaya's relentless questions, to Zara's quiet voice and the way her eyes had lingered when she finally said his name. He caught himself once, halfway through untangling a nutrient line, thinking about how Zara's hand had briefly brushes when she passed him the parcel. Harry grunted and turned the water flow up until the drone sputtered. "Get a grip," he muttered to himself. The next morning, as he ran a diagnostic sweep on the tomato beds, his comm panel blinked. Incoming visitor. He frowned. No deliveries scheduled. Then a shape appeared at the edge of property line, a small, bouncing figure, waving with both arms. Kaya. She ran right past the authorized entry only sign, as if it didn't exist, and stopped short when she saw the greenhouse dome in full operation. "Whoa!" she breathed. "You live in a space farm." Harry stepped out from the main shack, wiping his hands on a rag. "What are you doing out here?" "Field trip," she declared. "You came all the way from Rustbridge alone?" "No. My mom brought me. She's in the rover. I asked her to bring me. Told her it was for a school project." "You lied." Kaya shrugged. "I bent reality." Harry squinted toward the canyon ridge. Sure enough, a modest, battered rover was parked near the outer gate, and through the sun-glare windshield, he could just make out Zara's silhouette, still and composed. "Does she know you sprinted across my property?" "She suspects," Kaya said, then grinned. "So, can I see the greenhouse?" Harry gave her a long, level look. Then he sighed and gestured for her to follow. Kaya walked the rows of crops with wide eyes, dragging her fingers along the edge of nutrient tubes and sensor banks. The air was humid and filled with the faint tang of chlorophyll and electrolyzed water. "Everything's so orderly," she said. "I thought human things were supposed to be messy and dramatic." "I left that part behind," Harry replied. "Do you miss it? The other humans? The giant cities?" Harry considered that, leaning on a crate. "Not really." "Why not?" He looked at her for a moment before answering. "Because peace and quiet feel better than medals and meetings." Kaya tapped that into her datapad, like it was a quote from a prophet. "You're weird," she said affectionately. "I've been called worse." She looked up at him, serious now. "My mom likes weird people. She pretends not to, but I know." "I'm not." "You don't have to say anything." Kaya cut him off, waving her stylus. "I'm just observing. Like a scientist." Harry chuckled. "You're going to get me in trouble." Kaya grinned. "Not if she marries you." Before he could answer, a voice called from the ridge. "Kaya." Zara was walking toward them now, her boots crunching the dust, coat trailing lightly behind her. She stopped just short of the greenhouse entrance, eyes narrowed. "I told you to stay near the vehicle. I was conducting research." Kaya protested. Zara's eyes flicked to Harry. "I'm sorry." She's insistent. "It's fine," Harry said. "She's got good observational skills." Zara exhaled, visibly relaxing. "I was hoping to speak with you anyway." Harry raised an eyebrow. "Yeah. I was wondering if you might sell directly to me next cycle. Skip the market. I've expanded the shop's fresh produce section. You get a better rate." Harry studied her. "Sure, that's easy enough." They stood there for a moment, the sun warm on their shoulders, Kaya bouncing the background and pretending not to eavesdrop. "Also," Zara added, "I have to thank you." "For what?" "For being kind to her. Kaya, she lost her father before she ever really knew him. She's lonely sometimes, but she won't admit it." Harry looked toward the girl, who was now lying on her back in the sand and humming to herself. "I don't mind," he said. "She's good company." Zara smiled. A real one this time, not the flicker of politeness, but something that warmed her whole expression. "She thinks the universe gave her you," she said softly. "As a gift." Harry rubbed the back of his neck, unsure what to do with that. Then, to his own surprise, he said, "You could come by again for a proper visit. No lying about school projects." Zara looked at him, and something shifted in her silver eyes. A rare flicker of softness behind all that restraint. "I'd like that." That night, Harry stood on the rooftop with Bucket curled at his feet, watching the stars climb over the desert ridge. The wind was sharp and dry, and the stillness felt fuller than before, like a silence that had begun to hold meaning. He glanced at the far ridges where Zara's rover had disappeared an hour earlier. He'd come to nowhere to escape people. But maybe some people were worth making space for. Chapter 4, Smoke on the Horizon. The next few weeks passed in a rhythm Harry hadn't known he missed. Zara came by twice, once to finalize a new produce contract, and once with Kaya in tow, under the honest pretense of seeing the tomatoes again. They stayed longer that second time. Zara even drank tea with him on the shaded deck, overlooking the canyon. They didn't talk much, but somehow the quiet was comfortable. Kaya, meanwhile, had claimed a corner of the greenhouse as her research station. She asked fewer questions now, but when she did, they were deeper. "Do you ever regret not having a family?" she asked one afternoon, poking at a gross sensor. Harry hesitated. "Sometimes." "Me too," she said, then added, "I think you'd be a good dad." He'd had no reply to that, just swallowed the lump in his throat and pretended to check the drone readings. Rustbridge was busier than usual the next time Harry made the trip into town. Vendors packed the narrow alleys with double the usual volume. Merchants from other settlements had rolled in. Traders with sand-scarred ships and broad shoulders, loud voices, and too many bodyguards. Even the air felt different, tense, charged, watchful. Harry noticed at the moment he stepped out of the rover. People were talking in low voices. Doors were half-shuttered. Patrol drones buzzed higher than normal. He was halfway to Zara's shop when someone stepped into his path, a broad, tusked figure in mismatched armor. "You Luckert," the alien rumbled, squinting through mirrored lenses. Harry didn't slow his stride. "Depends who's asking." The tusked man grunted and stepped aside, muttering something in a dialect Harry recognized as Orvan street speak, a language usually reserved for smugglers, mercenaries, and low-level pirates. Harry's gut tightened. He found Zara behind her counter as usual, calm as ever, but there was a flicker of worry in her eyes when she looked up. "You saw them?" she asked quietly. "Big guy, cracked armor mirror goggles?" She nodded. "There are more. I've counted 8, maybe 10, posing as merchants." Harry leaned on the counter. "They're not here to buy vegetables." "No," she said simply. Kaya wasn't in the shop, for once. He didn't hear her chattering from the back room. "She's at school," Zara said, reading his expression. "I've kept her away from the streets lately." Harry gave a curt nod. "Good." Zara hesitated, then stepped closer. "You've dealt with them before, haven't you?" "I've dealt with worse," he said, "but not lately, and not here." She looked him in the eyes, then, level, steady. "Will you help us?" Harry didn't answer right away. His instinct was to keep his head down, mind his business. That was the deal he'd made with himself when he left it all behind. But Kaya's voice echoed in his head. "You be a good dad." And Zara's quiet trust was harder to ignore than any plea. "I'll talk to some people," he said. "We'll get ahead of it." Zara nodded once. "Thank you." That night, Harry didn't sleep. Instead, he stood on the rooftop with a long-range scope and watched the smoggy lights of Rustbridge in the far distance. He keyed into old Federation frequency bands. Most were dead, but a few local militia channels still flickered with life. The pirates hadn't attacked yet, but they would. Harry could feel it like pressure behind his eyes. He thought about the first time he'd met Zara, how stiff and guarded she'd been, how Kaya had burst through that silence like a sunbeam. He thought about how his life had gone quiet after the war, but not full. Maybe this place needed him more than he thought. Maybe he needed it, too. The first fire came 3 days later. It started in a scrapyard at the city's edge, just a blaze at first, then the sound of blaster fire, and then the scream of a building's alarm system as its shielding collapsed. Harry saw the smoke rise from his farm before the emergency broadcast even reached his comms. He loaded his rifle, not the old military-issue plasma rifle, that one he'd locked away years ago. This was a civilian weapon. Cruder, simpler. He slipped it over his shoulder and climbed into the Rover. He didn't call Zara. He just drove. Fast. Eyes squinting into the shimmering heat, heart pounding in time with the engine. Rust Bridge burned on the horizon, and Harry, who had once left the galaxy behind, raced toward it again.